For prelude, I'm sorry I didn't make it into the service bulletin, a kind of double-edged name, which is called Sweet Hour of Prayer, since we're having a chocolate communion.
And if we could please be silent and enjoy the music, thank you. Thank you, that was beautiful. Hi, my name is Laura Nelson. I'm your service associate today. I have pink hair, a dress with a cat on it, a sweater, and black boots. Welcome, and thank you all for joining us this morning in person and on Zoom. Summit is a liberal religious community bound together by shared principles drawn from world religions, humanist teachings, nature and science, philosophy, and personal practices. We aspire to be a religion of love and inclusion. The mission of Summit is to commit ourselves to building a more compassionate, just, and sustainable world. If you are new to Unitarian Universalism or to Summit and you would like to know more about us, we invite you to go to our website, summituuf.org. And I think we have some announcements. I'll do one. Oh, you can go.
Upside up. I'm announcing And you guys all, almost all of you know about Gizmo's Kitchen and the food box that's in the lobby. I made a mistake. No, I didn't, because I bought what I wanted to eat. But there's a problem with donating cans like this. Does anybody know what the problem is? It requires a can opener. And not everybody who's checking out these provisions have can openers in their glove compartments. So those pop tops are preferable. And I learned that today. And that's all I'm going to say.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mary Ann. Can you hear me okay? Yes. And just to remind women who want to go to the women's group, there's going to be a day and evening group, but there's a short meeting today, and it's set 12:15, but we maybe move it up to 12 for people who will be attending your book group, which is at 12:30.
That's fine. Just remember, we have a safety briefing today, too, so.
Yeah.
If it's 12:15, that's okay.
Yeah, 12:15 is okay? All right, so we'll make it a short meeting, so please come. Looking forward to it. Oh, also, I overheard some people saying they have a cold and they've been so gracious wearing masks. I don't have a cold, but I'm real careful. Lots of masks in the back if people want one today.
I'm Suzanne, and I'm drawing up interest for the pie drive. The pledge campaign this year is called Sharing the Pie. Well, that's true. Pledge campaign this year is called Sharing the Pie, and we picked pie for the following reasons. We're trying to put the fun in Fun Drive, and the Pie Day, 3/14, is Friday. We thought that was auspicious, and pie is very comforting in these troubled times. And also, we have some amazing cooks and bakers at Summit, and we hope to be able to showcase your wonderful work. So it's kicking off is March 9th. So I brought a sign-up sheet, and it'll be wherever the masks are, or point to where the masks are going to. Okay, in the greeting room or in here? Okay, it'll be out there in the greeting room. And once we get about 10 pies, then we, according to Mary, our pie expert, we'll probably have enough for everybody to have pie on March 9th, the kickoff. And after that, if you want to bring a pie, that's great. We'll have pie lottery after that. We'll have lottery for the pies. And if you are a vegan or sugar-free person or a gluten-free person, you'll be my best friend if you would make one of those pies. So everyone will be provided for. Thank you. And I got an opportunity to wear a costume.
Good morning. Excuse me. Good morning. My name's Jim Weed. I'm chairperson of the Welcoming and Membership Committee. I'm not going to give you my exact age. Let's just say mid-60s. I have white hair with a white mustache and a white goatee that I've had forever. According to my wife, Eleanor, this is an aqua shirt, tan slacks, and I've shrunk, but I'm still claiming I'm 5'10". Anyway, the Welcoming Membership Committee is inviting people to join us at Summit at the end of March, specifically March 30th at 11:30 a.m. in the Summit Library to learn more about our fellowship in Unitarian Universalism in general. And our minister, Reverend Casey, which I have to remember, Summit leadership and members of the Welcoming Membership Committee will be in attendance. And we have found in the past that bribing people with food and beverages helps assure, excuse me, a good turnout. So if you're interested in attending, look in your weekly e-news, or it'll be an article in the Summit Scene that'll have my email. Thank you.
One more announcement. There's two more? Okay, I have one. The cafe will be open after the safety meeting today. It's going to be 30 minutes instead of our discussion, so please plan on attending that. Thanks.
Good morning, everyone. I am the Reverend Casey Marie Pandell. I am a 35-year-old woman with short, dark-ish hair. It's kind of green today, with a pink dress and a purple floral stole and gold sparkly shoes. Just a reminder that we have our Ministers Book Group today after service. We are working with Peggy Gillespie's Authentic Selves. If you have not been before, if you missed last month, that's okay. Come on in. We're going to be meeting here in the sanctuary, so after the safety briefing, after all that stuff, about 12:30.
Good morning. My name is Mary Carter Vale. I'm your Director of Religious Exploration, and today I'm wearing a pink sweater, a chocolate brown dress, and sparkly gold shoes as well. I have graying red hair, and I'm in 60-ish era. So I would like to point out that we have a chocolate play table over here today. There's not melted chocolate over there. I made a couple different chocolate modeling clays, so the kids are over there playing with that. It's not just for kids. If you want to get a piece, you can. It is edible, but it's not super tasty. Just saying, okay? So enjoy. But that's, if you hear little sounds, that's the joy of our children in the place.
Any more? Okay, we need to light our chalice. This chalice is lit for you by Reverend Tara Humphreys. Whether you were born into this faith, found it, or it found you, whether you believe in God, are open to mystery, or still have no idea, whether you are holding anxiety, grief, confusion, anger, hope, restlessness, or deep peace, this chalice is lit for you. And if we could rise and sing the UU hymn. I'm so sorry. If you could stay standing and sing hymn 1007, please, in the blue teal book.
You may notice that today's service, if you are someone who has attended regularly, looks a little bit different than normal. I know that's not everybody's cup of tea, so I always appreciate when folks are willing to go on the journey with Mary and I when we do different things for you. Whether this is your first visit or your 5,000th visit, you are whole, you are holy, you are loved, and you are so welcome here. Our joys and concerns portion of the service allow us to celebrate the big things in people's lives and to hold the difficult things with them. Joys and concerns can be emailed to myself or our worship chair, Stacy Sasaki, throughout the week, and can also be handwritten up near the chancel on a Sunday morning. Whether you choose to have your joy or concern shared aloud, all are welcome to light a candle. To begin today, I share the sad news of the death of beloved cemeterian Rod Orth, who passed away on Friday evening. We know Rod will be deeply missed in this community, and we hold Rod's daughter Kathy and each and every one of you in our hearts. Stacy Sasaki shares that her beloved Glenn just turned 70 and is finally retiring in 4 days. She leaves the note, she was wondering if it would ever happen. And Mary shares the sorrow that her big dog Ginger has a torn ACL and is asking for lots of healing love for sweet Ginger. Whether spoken or unspoken, know that the joys and the sorrows in this community are held in the most loving kindness and with the tenderest of hearts. Amen.
Good morning, all. As Suzanne mentioned earlier, we are ramping up our annual Generosity Pledge campaign. The board of directors will be the pledge chairs this year, and we will be having several proud and generous summit members give testimonial for the several weeks coming up. They'll have this opportunity to share why they are part of this fellowship, what being in community means to them, and why they act with purpose to maintain and grow what has been given to us and what we want to give to those who follow us. Today's speaker is our wonderful, courageous Pam Williams.
I'm Pam Williams, and I'm wearing a dress for a change, and especially one that's short and showing off my legs. I usually don't do that. But anyway, here it goes. First, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I grew up in Haverhill, Massachusetts. It's north of Boston on the Merrimack River. Okay, as a child, I went to the old white Congregational church that was on the Commons, and it's where my dad's family had gone to church since the 1600s. I had a very traditional bringing up. But from an early age, I can remember questioning the Bible and the Christian creed. For example, I remember one Sunday in the church school questioning why Mary and Joseph were shocked to find Jesus talking with the rabbis in the temple. Do you remember that when he was 12 years old? After all, they should have known he was the Son of God. I see myself then and now as an agnostic. I remember another episode in the church school
when I was asked what I wanted to do when I grew up. After thinking for a while, I remember saying I wanted to make the world a better place. The reaction was they laughed. I felt they thought I was silly, but I was serious about that goal and have kept it as a goal throughout my life. I was still attending the church school in high school. I think we were talking about other religions, and our teacher brought up the Unitarian Church. He seemed to like it and spent a lot of time talking about it. A religious community where you could belong without saying a creed that you didn't believe. Before he finished, I knew I was a Unitarian. But it was years later when my first husband and I moved our family to Oklahoma in 1970 that we joined the Unitarian Church. Over the years, we had talked and agreed that we would like to be Unitarians, but it wasn't until we found ourselves being bombarded by neighbors inviting us to church that we said it was the time. In self-defense, we took ourselves and sons down to the First Unitarian Church of Oklahoma City. I felt that I had found my spiritual home, a place I could be myself in my quest for truth. I remained a very active member for 20 years until moving to California in 1990. Before moving to California, where my parents and brothers had already moved from New England, my brother died of AIDS in 1985. He was the first patient to die of AIDS at Palomar Hospital. I remember joining my dad at the Congregational Church in Escondido, asking the minister there to perform the funeral. He refused us and quickly escorted us out. This was heartbreaking for my dad. I suggested that we contact one of the local UU fellowships. The first one we called, without hesitation, said they would be glad to help us. 5 years after my brother's death, and 1 year after my husband's death, I finally moved to San Diego County. For the next 12 years, I lived in Encinitas, and I was a member of the San Diego Fellowship in Solana Beach. I was so pleased that my father decided to join the fellowship as well. He remembered the support he got at the time of my brother's death. I continued to love being a UU, and I loved the like-minded people I found there. Also, I enjoyed attending Sunday services in the outdoor amphitheater. After moving to Spring Valley, I finally found Summit. But then by then, I had been a Unitarian Universalist for over 30 years. I remember the congregation talking and debating about a mission statement and finally adopting, in spiritual community, we commit ourselves to building a compassionate, just, and sustainable world. Not only do we have this as our mission statement, but we take it seriously. And almost every week we discuss and strive to take action towards that goal. I have been a UU for over 50 years. But at Summit, I feel really supported in what I've always wanted to do with my life, and that is to help make the world a better place. We know that it is a hard job, and sometimes we fall short, but I'm happy to join with other like minds to try. Summit is my beloved community where I feel loved and supported in my spiritual journey. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Pam. You'll see that initially said choral anthem. Our beloved Duncan is out ill today, so we will have our choral anthem next week with our choir singing next week. So thank you, Pam, for being ready to give us that rousing testimonial today. I'm pretty sure you probably didn't know you were doing it until last night. So, but thank you for such beautiful words. We really appreciate it. Please join me in a time of silent prayer, meditation, or reflection. Spirit of life and love, all that is known and unknown, that which we seek and that seeks us. We come together today in this sacred space, in this sanctuary, knowing that we come with questions, with wonderings, with concerns and anxieties. We come with hopes and fears and wants and needs, and we know that when we come into this space together, we are coming into a community that wants to seek these things alongside us. The beauty of a community like Summit's is knowing that there is always a helping hand, a gentle smile, and if requested, a really big hug or a crisp high five. These communities like ours, the resilience that we build in this room every Sunday is the same resilience that gets us through our darkest, deepest, hardest days and our most brilliant and joyful ones, and everything in between. We know with the uncertainties of the world before us that this is a place that we can count on loving us through it all. When we come in this space on a Sunday morning for worship, on a Tuesday evening for men's group, a covenant group in someone's home, or any of the various community building activities that we get to engage in together, we know we are coming in with open minds and open hearts and loving kindness that seeks to make this a better and more liberative world, not just for those of us in the room, but for those we have yet to know and those beyond our Summit walls. Amen. So Mary and I are going to do something a little bit different that I don't think we've done at Summit before. We want to let folks at home know that we know that you don't have 4 different types of chocolate in front of you, or you probably don't. For those of you that are unable to participate in every part of this, we know that that is not always the most fun, so we want to make sure that we're leaning into the idea of the symbolism more than anything. So if there's a piece of chocolate that you cannot eat when it gets brought to you, and don't eat it until we tell you to, go ahead and hold on to it. We have a little bit that we're going to do with it, and there's going to be more opportunities for other things today as well. So bear with us. It's a whole new communion that we're excited to bring to you today. Yes. And I'm going to hand it over to, do we want to pass these out now?
I'm going to show them. Okay. Talk a little bit. Is my mic on? Testing. Oh, there it is. There we go. Back when Reverend Ned was at Summit, he bought a bunch of little communion cups. We get to use them again.
I was wondering where you got communion cups from.
I have like 1,000 of these in RE. They're really, really small, but they're perfect for chocolate. So can I get a couple helpers to help me pass these out? Abby's got one. So when you get them, just hold on to it. Don't get into it yet, because I'm going to talk a little bit about what's in them. They're all fair trade. That was very important to us, so we got fair trade chocolate, which means that children weren't part of the harvesting and collecting of the chocolate, and that people were paid a fair wage. So I have a little chocolate altar set up here, sort of, just looking at the delicious chocolates. Some of you may know that I am a trained pastry chef. My very first job out of culinary school was the manager of a Rocky Mountain chocolate factory.
Delicious.
So I used to temper and dip chocolate, make unique chocolate bonbons for our particular store, and I have lots of scars from making those big caramel apples. But I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, where does chocolate come from? Does anybody know where it comes from? Jenny? Comes from trees that grow in tropical regions. It was originally a sacred drink to the Mayan people. It was a sacred part of their rituals, and the story goes that the chocolate tree was actually bloomed from the body of a deity that had passed away. That it grew from the body of a sacred deity. So it was a gift to the people, and it was very sacred. It grows in a pod. Pod looks, it's kind of like an elongated winter squash. You can imagine that. I couldn't buy one. They were like really expensive to buy one, so I apologize. Budget. Got fair trade chocolate instead. But inside this pod, there are these white seeds that are about this big, covered with like this gooey stuff. And the Mayans would harvest these pods, separate them out, put the seeds out in the sun to sort of ferment and dry. Then they would be roasted and ground and mixed into water with some sacred herbs and spices, and it was called the drink of the gods. But it was not sweet. It was a bitter, savory drink, think of coffee, like coffee. And it was very sacred. And what, of course, happened? Colonization. So European discoverers came over and said, we're looking for gold. And for these people, chocolate was gold. They described what gold was. It was gold to them. This was something very sacred. Of course, it wasn't the gold that folks were looking for, but they took it back to Europe. And for a while, it was only served amongst the kings, the most regal people, the highest end of the money in the region could afford chocolate. Then they figured out how to mix it with sugar and squeeze it to get the cocoa butter out, make a bar, and it became much more accessible. So I tell you this story because you can't really address chocolate without addressing the colonization that has happened to it. So I want you to think about that as we continue with our discussion of, when we do our little ritual, we have some questions for you to lean into on that, the idea of cultural sharing, of inclusivity, of the value we bring to each other when we can freely have exchange of ideas as opposed to just taking them. Okay? Does everybody have some chocolate? Okay. For those of you that are sugar-free, in the bottom there's these things called cocoa nibs. Now the cocoa nibs come from, I'm just going to tell you what's in there and then we're going to go into our little ritual. So cocoa nibs are actually scraped from those come from the roasted chocolate bean. They're like straight up, so they don't have any sugar in them. They're a little bitter. But I think they're delicious. They taste like chocolate.
I don't think I've ever tried them before.
Yep, so they're in there. They're the little cracky pieces. They look like little pieces of broken nuts because that's what they are. They're broken seed. Then there's white chocolate, which actually has no cacao in it. It's just cocoa butter and milk.
Dog safe.
Apparently it's dog safe too. We used to make at the Rocky Mountain chocolate dipped dog bones with white chocolate only. The dogs like them. And then there's milk chocolate and there's a semi-sweet. But we're going to go through eating them together. Eat what you would like. If it's something you don't care for, that's fine. It is good chocolate, so it will melt. That's why I have it in the little cups.
So don't hold it in your hands too long.
Yeah. So.
I mean, you can if you want, but.
Yeah. And if you need more later, we've got more. So. Okay. Let's take a minute to just breathe together, smell it. Use all your senses, like smell, look at it visually. You can taste it if you want. We're kind of got to wait just a minute for the tasting, right? Unfortunately, the cocoa nibs are at the very bottom, and I suggest you start with those. So when you put it in your mouth, It's not going to be the easiest, so dump them out and put the other ones back in the cup. When you put them in your mouth, I want you to just let them roll there for a little bit, just sort of feel them, feel the texture. Think about the Maya and the Mesoamerican people, that this was a very important part of their culture. And I want you to lean into a time when you felt your culture wasn't honored. And the bitterness of feeling unseen or unheard.
And for those of you at home who can't taste what this tastes like, you can smell the chocolate when you're chewing it, but it's very, very bitter and a little bit sandy. So if that helps you think about a time where your culture wasn't respected.
Yeah. You want to do the next one?
And then we're going to go on to our semi-sweet, which is the next dark one. Go ahead and hold that close, give it a nice smell, maybe compare it to how the cacao beans smelled and tasted. Well, you haven't tasted it yet. So it smells a little hefty, not quite as
Pop it in
chocolatey as that's okay. You can go ahead, if you're ready to eat it, go ahead and eat it.
It cuts the bitterness.
So this is our semi-sweet chocolate, so it's not quite as bitter. It has a little bit of that sweetness to it. So we'd like you to think about a time when your culture was respected. How sweet that feels when someone sees you. But maybe we get it wrong sometimes, and there are those bitter moments about it too.
You know this is high quality chocolate when it just melts and it doesn't leave any waxy feel in your mouth. Good chocolate. So, I can't read what you wrote here. Which is our next one? Oh, do you? Okay.
Or rather, when did you not when did you?
Okay. All right, so our next one is the milk chocolate. And this one does contain milk, so if you're, the last two do contain milk, if you don't do dairy. You can smell it. It's slightly sweeter. It's a slightly different smell. And this is what really brought chocolate to the masses. Milk chocolate was the thing that made more folks have accessibility to it. Although be careful when you're purchasing it. If you see something labeled chocolate flavored, it's not the same. So, again, let's put it in our mouth and feel it. And when did you feel it is included?
No, I missed a word there.
Yeah. When did you feel included? I asked this question with the milk chocolate because that was when more people got access to it. So when did you feel included? Think about a time when you felt included. So sweet. So sweet to be included.
Mm-hmm. Now, we mentioned with white chocolate that it's missing some of the elements that are in these other chocolates.
Missing the cacao, the cocoa powder.
So as you're ruminating on this flavor, thinking about how different it tastes from anything that has cacao in it, I'd like you to think about a time where you were not included, what was missing. And think about the difference between how good it felt to be included and how painful it was or how sticky it might have been to not have been included. What was missing? So if you haven't already eaten your white chocolate, it's okay if you have. Take a smell of it and see how different it smells. Or maybe it smells a little like the chocolate because it's been sitting with it.
Yep. And white chocolate just contains the cocoa butter. So just have a little bit of, it's the fat.
We're going to take a big, deep breath together. We're going to spend another few moments thinking about these questions and just rolling them around in our hearts.
So after enjoying the sweetness of the chocolate, I always reflect back to where it came from. And this pot over here is a hot cocoa pot that my son gave me, which I brought in to have there. And I have some, I know it's not exactly a hot chocolate day, but I have some Mexican hot chocolate in a crock pot over in the salon for after our safety meeting.
But you have to go to the safety
You have
meeting
to go
first.
to safety meeting, which will happen right here. You don't have to go anywhere.
So thank you for going on a chocolate journey with us today. Mary and I have been trying this year to try to bring more ritual to Summit. Historically, Unitarians have not had a whole lot of ritual, and I think that some of that's because we are so inclusive of other faiths that we sort of lost some of that along the way. One of the major rituals we have, for those of you who aren't Unitarian Universalists, we have our water communion and our flower communion every year. And they kind of bookend a church year. But that's really all we regularly have. So what this originally started at months ago, before the world felt like it might be a little on fire, Mary and I had just wanted to bring more ritual, more opportunity for you all to feel like you were embodying your own worship. You weren't just sitting there in the audience or sitting at home just listening to us talk at you. It was giving you a chance to participate actively in your own spiritual journeys while we're here together on a Sunday. And then when it came time to decide what rituals we wanted to do, it was just kind of fun to think, oh, we could do this around Valentine's Day. And then the world changed a lot really fast a couple weeks ago, didn't it? So I've been sitting with, and we tried to talk about this on the drive to and from the mountains, and there's just so much to talk about.
Yep.
It felt really hard to catch up. So I've been sitting this week with why chocolate and why now? Of course, I'm the minister. I could scrap a sermon the week of and change it. And many ministers do that based on what's happening in our communities and in our world. But it felt really important today to still give you all that ritual. So I've been sitting with this idea of why chocolate and why today. You heard some of the history of chocolate, how it came to be something so major in our lives. And it was a good reminder that history is really easy to forget. History is really easy to obfuscate depending on who's in charge. So it's important to make sure we're telling those stories as accurately as possible, because those are the stories that are going to help us guide the way. Because when we lose our stories, what happens? We get lost, right? And how can we ensure a better future if we don't know where we came from? It also gives us the opportunity to think about doing things differently. We know how we got chocolate before. We know how it came to be that children were used in the labor of it. That's why fair trade chocolate was so important to us. We're Unitarian Universalists. One of the things we believe is the inherent worth and dignity of all beings. That includes our children. That includes making sure that people are getting a fair wage for the work that they're doing. So not using fair trade chocolate, even though this is a little harder to find and a little more expensive, not using it is not living into our values. We have to choose to be different and to do better than we've been able to do in the past. I'm actually going to look at my notes for once. And part of it was that we wanted it to be a way for us to ruminate on what life is like. Initially, when I thought about it, it was as simple as sometimes we have bad days and sometimes we have good days. That feels a little insufficient right about now, doesn't it? As we're hearing daily of different airplane crashes, we're hearing about people losing their jobs and their benefits and their livelihoods at astounding rates. We're seeing decisions made overnight with no overhead, with no one watching to make sure this is the right decision. And it just seems like we're playing catch up the entire time. So it was more than just sometimes we have good days and sometimes we have bad days. This morning I was sitting in my office and thinking, how can I make something so simple as chocolate be really spiritual? And I remembered that we've been talking a lot about joy as resistance. The point of all of these things happening so fast is to keep us scared and to keep us in chaos. We get to decide how we respond to that. Joy is resistance because they want us scared. They want to make these decisions and make us feel like we are powerless. So how beautiful to get to share some time together enjoying these different chocolates in this community. Such a small, simple act of being together and enjoying something delicious. For being able to sit in this space for those of you at home or those of you who did not participate in actually eating the chocolate, to know you're in this loving space and can explore those things together and can do it joyfully and unapologetically. So chocolate started to feel really important because chocolate became a symbol of choosing joy and choosing resilience and choosing to tell our story the way it needs to be told. Sometimes I wonder if I'm getting it right. Sometimes I sit here with you and I feel like I repeat myself over and over again. But sometimes, maybe that's the point. It's not just something you hear once. How many times do we have to hear the same story or hear even someone's name before we remember it? I think the science says it's something like 7 times we have to hear something before we remember it. It was a reminder today that we are all, look around the room for those of you who are in the room, this is pretty close to a packed house for us with having the extra space that we have. There are people who want to be here together with you and with you and with you. There are people at home on Zoom who want to be here and for their various reasons can't be and are still in the room with us watching this service because this is where it happens. This is what matters. We chose chocolate because it felt like a gift, a very small gift. We know it's always darkest before the dawn, but it's always worth hoping for something more. And our hope today with chocolate was that you would see the joy and the hope and the resilience in something so simple, something so everyday. The reminder that it doesn't have to be big, grandiose choices. It could be as simple as a smile and a handshake, an offer to go to dinner. It doesn't have to be changing the world with big, grandiose, powerful things, although if we can, those things help. I think for those of us that aren't in places of political power to make a difference, this is how we make a difference, with the simple, everyday acts together. And I hope as you enjoy whatever chocolate we have today, whether it's the hot chocolate that we have later, whether it's a couple more communion cups that I didn't kick over behind me, or I hope when you go have your next little treat for yourself, maybe that's a cup of coffee or a cup of tea or something more what you need for your soul, just remember that it's these small acts together. These are the ones that build community, that build our resilience, and that keep building up our reserves of hope. Because hope, at the end of the day, is what's going to be our biggest gift to each other and to ourselves. So may it be, and amen.
Your Sunday morning offering is a gift that provides Summit UU Fellowship the financial resources to help build a better world together. The smallest gift is welcome. For those of you on Zoom, the link can be found in the chat box. Please select the Sunday Plate option to allocate your donation to the appropriate account.
And I'd like to dedicate to the memory of Rod Orth, who was a dear friend and who loved classical music and always brought me CDs and introduced me to some new performers. And he was just a sweetest man. He visited my husband in the hospital. He was just, yeah, well, he's going to be greatly missed. But this is Godspeed to Rod.
promise. I've been really overwhelmed the last couple weeks. And I know if I am, there's a lot of people in this room and at home who are too. Mary and I got the absolute pleasure of being able to be up in the mountains at Camp de Benneville Pines last week. And I remember thinking, gosh, this is going to be so much work. And even though it was work, it was so beautiful to be in such a sacred space with kids just being kids, just doing their everyday thing. And a lot of sledding, so much sledding. Some of those kids had never even seen snow before. And it helped. I ate a lot of snow while I was there, by the way. I was very excited. And it helped center me, and I think that's part of what I'm trying to bring in today. These small, everyday moments are what are going to keep us grounded. I think about how overwhelmed I was just on my drive here this morning, and yet I get to look out at all of these faces in this room and know that there's more of you at home on Zoom. And I am so deeply grateful. I have nothing but the deepest love and gratitude for this community of people who want to see and do better in the world. And that helps the overwhelm just a little bit. I think a little more than a little bit. Because no matter what, I know this is a community that is strong and loving and is going to be here for each other on the darkest days, on the most bitter ones, and on the sweetest ones. And I hope you all recognize the gratitude for each other as well. Amen, shalom, salam, ashe, namaste, and blessed be. Go now in peace. May the light within you be a blessing to the world.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of our community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. So if we could rise and do our circle song.